You know, my little tagline is, if you want to do the impossible strategically in half the time, then I can help you. So why people come? Because they're merging, they're demerging. They want to double their profits, they want to triple their stock price, they want to float, they want to come out of administration, they want to restructure, they want to do all the things that companies do. However, they want to do it spectacularly. They do not want an ordinary result. Because the way that I work with boards and top teams and whole companies actually unleashes so much human potential, and it does it so effectively that people achieve things that they really could not imagine achieving. So I've on 3 occasions sent market researchers out to ask people why they've used me, and always people have come back and said, we don't know, we just know that things happen when she's there that don't happen when she isn't there, and we could not imagine being where we are now without her.
In a world where it is metrics obsessed, what springs to mind is how do you measure? What is a measure of your impact within an organisation?
Yeah. So that's a little bit tricky, because everything will improve. So you're going to have to measure everything. You're going to have to measure diversity figures. You're going to have to measure environmental impact. You're going to have to measure bottom line. You're going to have to measure share price. You're going to have to measure the reduction of accident. You're going to have to measure everything, because everything improves. So let's say we have a drunk man with an axe, right? That drunk man with an axe is going to get a result. Sober the man up, same axe, sober the man up, you're going to get a different result. So it's almost like I walk into organisations and they're behaving at the effectiveness of a drunk. When they all get to the effectiveness of somebody sober, what is possible is unimaginable when we start. So yes, measure, please measure. I would love people to measure, but measure everything, because everything will get better.
Margot, you mentioned that you've worked for a variety of industries, both here in Australia and globally. Can you just tell us about some of the companies that you have worked for and the size of those organisations?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of work with BP when it was a good company, and there was a time when BP actually was an excellent company. BP Mobile merged with BP in Europe merged with Mobile in Europe, and I was asked to go over from Australia and work with the leaders of that merger, which was very exciting. You know, when companies merge, often people die, their relationships fall apart, they get awfully stressed. At the end of that merger, people wrote to the leader and said, this has been the best part of our career. We've learnt more, had more fun, and made better friends during this period than any other time in our career. After that, I was actually headhunted to work with BP Oil globally, that was merging with Amoco globally. And I worked with the top 10 BP Oil during that period. The irony of that is that Amoco didn't want BP to be merged with Mobil in Europe, so there had to be a demerger in Europe. But after a merger, 2 mergers and a demerger, the people of BP in Europe in manufacturing still said it was the best time of their life, because of the way it had been done and what they'd learnt, the relationships they'd developed. So I saw that as a huge success. Not only did BP manufacturing in Europe, which was the part I was working with when it merged with Mobil, was the worst performing division of BP globally when I went there. 18 months later, it was the best performing division of BP globally. That's after 3 months. So that's after 2 mergers and a demerger. So that was, I consider that to be a success. Who else have I worked for?
You've also mentioned that you've worked for mining and energy organisations.
I have. I worked for Western Power, Origin Energy, through a very dramatic period of their career where they went through a hostile, there was a hostile takeover bid, which actually led to a merger, which led to Origin Energy going from being a national company to being a global company. I've worked with a lot of banks. at various points of their career. A very big job for me was when Pasminco went into administration owing $3.6 billion to 36 different lenders. Then we came out of administration, the only company of that size ever to do so in Australia, to become Zinifex, which was the #1 growth stock on the Australian stock market. Zinifex then merged with Umicore in Europe to create Nearstar. So by that stage, which is kind of when I left, Nearstar was worth somewhere about $6 billion, I think, and Zinifex was worth about the same. So we'd taken something owing $3.6 billion to two things worth about $6 billion. So that was also something I considered to be a success. But what was, of course, lovely was the lovely feedback I got from the people, and so did the managing director, about how they felt about it. They'd had fun, they'd learned, they'd grown, they'd actually got in touch with themselves in a whole different way. It had been an interesting and fun experience. And that's the sort of thing that I love about my work. And also they dealt with also a whole range of environmental issues, social issues, and they'd done it with wisdom. And, that's the sort of thing that really I get excited about in my work. So I call those the happy accidents. People get you in to turn a company around or merge it or whatever it is, get it out of administration or double its profit or triple its share price or whatever they get you in to do. But the happy accident is the happy people. The happy accident is what happens in the environment. The people genuinely become environmental stewards. The happy accident is what happens with the communities. They genuinely care for the communities. It's not some PR exercise they're doing. They genuinely care. And they roll their sleeves up and get out there and work on it.
Margot, you have an involvement with Davos. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that unfolded? And
basically there used to be a thing here in Australia called the Davos Connection, which was a sort of the Australian arm of the World Economic Forum, and quite a number of because I've been mentoring chief executives and chairmen of boards for years, quite a number of my clients were part of that. And so they asked me along to this annual event they have on Hayman Island every year, where basically the leaders of the region get together. And very kindly I was then asked back, I became a regular, and they asked me to start leading sessions, and the last time I went they actually asked me to be on the closing panel, which is a real honour. It's kind of where they put the heavy hitters, and the funny thing was I think there were 12 of us and I was the only woman. And I was actually introduced not as myself but as the only woman, which was quite ironic, but anyway, there you go.